Okay, first of all, I want to apologise for the beanie, but our central heating is broken and it's very cold, so I need to protect my beautiful hair from being frozen to death or something. But anyway, we'll get on with it. This is the individual case study for INB 2101. Our lecturer is Dr. Ian Austin. My name is Shane Aden, student number 102509116. The assessment that we're doing today is preparing for an assignment in another country, or being sent to another country that you're not familiar with. In this case, the country we have is Japan. We're going to be going through a couple of cultural and social considerations, along with a couple of business mannerisms that you should probably adopt when you go over there, including sort of just basics to like the Japanese language, for example, all the way up to things like cultural sensitivity and emotional stability. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to be obviously looking at the camera, and I have little help sheets on my monitor here that can sort of guide me as I go through. So we'll just get started. So, I mean, Japanese culture as a whole, I mean, when you hear the phrase Japanese culture, what do you think? A lot of people have different opinions. A lot of people think of classical Japan. A lot of people are swept away with this essence of, mysterious, oriental, traditional Japan. And then, you speak to someone who actually lives in Japan currently now, and it's nothing like that, because just like Australia, they move on with the times, they get on with it. So it's good in the sense that we don't need to think of them as being entirely foreign, but at the same time you can't go over there thinking that 100% of your norms and values are going to be accepted over there, because it's just not the case. To start off with, I mean, the Japanese are very, very fixated on the principle of harmony, or wa, as they call it. I mean, it's a two-letter word, that's what they call it. And I think that is something that you should keep in mind when you do head over there, because it might not apply to every facet of life to you, but it does to them, no matter how busy they are. It's kind of like a juxtaposition of how busy they are in the workplace, and you see Japan in videos, it's just bustling. I mean, there's no sense of personal space, but they do hold that quite dear to their core as a nation, so just be in mind of that. Another consideration to have in terms of culture is this whole business of extroversion versus introversion. In Japan, introversion is the go. You want to stick with introversion. You don't want to be too assertive and too out there. As I mean, in Australia you have freedom of speech. You can say whatever you like. You can act a certain way in public. I mean, you're not going to look like the greatest, but the fact is you can do it. Not so much in Japan. It's not so much that someone's going to call you out and say, hey, you're being ridiculous. It's not looked upon. They hurt you by not saying anything. They hurt you by not saying anything, and that probably make you feel even worse. So introverted behavior, so be reserved, be a bit more reserved about it. If you have certain opinions, maybe not let all of them out, depending on where you're working and what you're doing, because you are in a foreign country and things are different. So just keep that in mind. And lastly, in terms of cultural considerations, it's just the whole concept of cultural sensitivity. I mean, as I said before, you are in a different country. They sort of see you as a guest, but you have to play within their set of norms, I guess. You don't have to adopt everything I'm not saying you have to adopt and agree with everything, but you just have to sometimes keep your opinions to yourself. And I guess another tip is to not try and imitate the locals. I mean, don't try and I think I'm turning Japanese. Don't do that. That's not going to win you any fans either. From a business point of view, rule number one, learn the language. I mean, a lot of people go to Japan, and they know little bits and pieces, and it just doesn't work. As an expatriate, if you are going to go to Japan, learn the language, at least learn the basics. Or if money is no object, hire a translator. Take a translator with you and save yourself some grief. I know it's very expensive, but it can be done. Other than that, you need to get working on your Japanese. A second point that I should raise in terms of business mannerisms in Japan is this concept of emotional stability, and all that means is to keep composed when you do go over there. There's no need for emotions. I mean, it's similar to the place, I guess, in Australia, an office place here or a workplace here is people generally don't show their emotions as much, but it's even more so in Japan. And what I mean by that is you don't really, when something good happens, you don't scream and yell and carry on. When something bad happens, you don't scream and yell and carry on. You maintain a level of composure and confidence about yourself. That is regarded very highly. Another thing you should consider is this notion of the workplace as being a second home, because working in Japan is definitely part of that. You know, no matter what you're doing, if you're just going over there for a couple of days, you're going to be expected to work. So be ready to make your workplace your second home. In terms of negotiating, in a business sense, again, very different to Western culture. There's a very, very high emphasis on attention to detail, not deadlines. They don't care if they run over deadlines, but as long as they have made the right decision as a group, that's what they value. Because in Japan, it's definitely a case of collectivism over individualism. So you need to make sure that whoever you are working with, you're getting along with the whole group. So what can you do if you are going to head over to Japan? Well, like I said, bilingual training. You know English. I mean, you would hope so. Learn some Japanese. Get a tutor or a translator, whatever works for you. Start your preparation small. You can go on websites like, I've got one here called thejapanesepage.com and Gaijinpot. Gaijin in Japanese means outsider. It's kind of funny, but it's not a derogatory thing. It's just what they say. You can head to those sites, so thejapanesepage.com and gaijinpot.com, for really, really basic tips. And then if you're feeling a little bit more classical, you can refer to some books like We Japanese by Degaris. It's a book published in 2013. You can... It's really hard to sort of sum this up, really, but I guess the one key point to take from this is when in Rome, do as the locals do. That's not the case in Japan. You really have to just be your own person, but stay within their cultural boundaries of what they think is acceptable for you as an outsider. That's all I can say. Is just know your place, because in terms of the power distance in Japan, it's not essentially high. It's actually quite low, because again, harking back to the individual versus collectivism thing, it is a group decision, but you are a gaijin, you are an outsider, so stay within, I guess, your own comfort zone. Don't be so assertive if that's your sort of natural behavior. Be a bit more reserved. Remember, you're not going to be there for forever. Respect the locals, respect the customs, and have a good time. You are in Japan. There are other things to do in Japan. Me for one, I wanted to go check out some D1 drifting, but I'm stuck in a living room, or a bedroom I should say, with no central heating. So we'll leave it there. Thank you for listening to the presentation, and I will see you later.